Okay, so we talked about safety, we've talked about some equipment things, we've talked about looking for the right bow, we've talked about, you know, some of the problems, the big three problems that people can encounter. We've gone over, you know, buying a bow weight you can manage. And I want to reestablish the fact that it's really important to buy a bow that you can shoot. If you're shooting 12 arrows, a dozen arrows daily off that bow, and you're getting tired, slow down, shoot 8 arrows, build up to that, right? If you're shooting 6 arrows and you're already getting tired, you're probably overbowed. So I have an entire system that I have built around using a Thera or exercise band for the draw and anchor cycle basics of shooting a bow. And a few years back, I had a work-related shoulder injury and neck injury, and this was compounded by a pretty tough Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match I'd had, and I had a guy in full guard who was like a Division I and provincial freestyle wrestling champion. And to break my guard, he brought me up into what's called a can opener and slammed my neck down. And so I had all sorts of mess in here going on. And that fall, I was super worried. I'm like, my goodness, am I going to be able to draw a bow to actually hunt this fall? So what I did was, after I went to physio and talked about all these exercises, they'd be like, you're not ever going to shoot a bow again. What I did for the next 2 falls is actually shot my bow. I still shot it instinctive. My draw length shortened. But what I did is I developed a series of drills that I call letdown drills. And then I developed those letdown drills into using a TheraBand and got my shoulder back into shooting shape in under 6 weeks when I was told not going to happen, right? All I did was transfer these skills into that TheraBand, right? So what I like to do with folks, these are drills you can do at the office, on your lunch hour, in your car while you're waiting for someone. You can do them anywhere. You can grab your TheraBand, throw it in your pocket, keep it in your vehicle. You can keep one at the office. They're cheap. I recommend getting one of moderate weight, either a yellow or a red band, and progressing right up into the black bands. And you can change by folding them over, and I put just a 1/2 inch loop in the back end of this to simulate that hook, right? These are really important drills, not only for draw cycles and getting that nice back tension, people would call back tension, because you're really actually not so much pinching the shoulder blades together. And we get into this a little bit, you'll see in our coaching table drills of actually, from some of our challenges, you'll see of how to actually adjust for that. And I'm not getting into that too much today. What I'm going to do is talk about indexing. What do I mean by indexing? Indexing is basically correct placement for the bow you're shooting. There's something I see pretty widespread right now, and it mostly is people coming from the compound world into the traditional world, and that has to do with grip. I see a lot of folks shooting bows that have a mid to high risk grip as if they were shooting with a complete low risk grip. And again, a low risk grip here would be as if I almost had no pistol grip on this and it was completely flat, right? And what I see is with a pistol grip, people are outside of the pivot point. That is, they're holding their grip almost this way, outside the pivot point. So a lot of that grip is falling on their thumb joint, not inside on the meat of their palm here, right? And what happens? Well, what happens is if the bow has any hand shock, and what hand shock is, when I release that string, it's that kind of, you would call it bow recoil, right? When the limbs recover back to their point, how much vibration goes into that riser, right? It's one of the reasons why you need to heel a longbow this way. Because if I shoot that longbow this way, have fun, because you're gonna feel those limbs come back, and your release and your follow through is gonna be pretty messed up, right? Because you can't catch that bow as well. See what's happening with that longbow when I try to catch it with that grip? Whereas if I'm here heeling that bow and I release, there's a lot more stability. So that's something I see a lot of. I see folks with a mid or high risk grip bow here, and they're almost like outside here with that bow instead of putting the meat of that palm in here, right? So what these drills do by indexing or finding the same place every time to grip, this has to do with your consistency now, is I use that TheraBand in the kinetic and kinesthetic feel it develops by placing that band right on the meat of my palm where I'll be indexing my bow. And then I'll get a nice deep hook with the loop end I've made on my hook, and I will practice drawing and coming to full draw. Some points and considerations. Keep your wrist relaxed. Don't tense it up. The more tension you have in your grip and your hook, the more tension you're going to have on the bowstring, right? So when I get this in and I start drawing this up here and I look, all I want you to do is stretch so that this hand that's pointing and this hand that's drawing are now at a 90 degrees. So this elbow is pointing back perpendicular to where this hand is pointing. My way of shooting, the Archer's Trinity shooting method for the code of traditional archery, is based on a point and shoot method, much like shooting English shotgun style. We are pointing, sweeping, and slapping the trigger, right? I have two types of releases. I have a dead release where I come back in my anchor pocket. We'll talk a little bit about what the pocket is. Not just anchor point, but pocket. I come back to my anchor pocket. When I release, I'll have a dead release here. That's usually an animal that's giving me time, or a target that's giving me time, maybe even a sanitized environment like today where I'm not wearing hunting clothes, and I have time and luxury to really work on my form structure and shoot. And I still work on my form all the time. Remember, this is a perishable skill. You need time to develop, right? And then I have what's called a live release, and you'll see that come back here and pull through all the way back, right? And I find that's usually on a moving animal or perhaps an avian species like a turkey or a pheasant. The pheasant flying or the turkey moving a little bit more erratically than that kind of constant motion of an ungulate like a deer or a moose, right? More on that in another series. The first drill I want you to do is really simple. Index this band where it would meet your bow grip. Grab your loop, get a nice deep hook, and work on structure. Keep your back straight. Don't let your back come here and convex because you're going to lose draw length. Keep your back nice and straight. Let your shoulders fall naturally. You shouldn't be up here. They should fall. Keep your wrists nice and loose and just practice coming up. Nice high elbow, nice deep hook, pointing and letting down. Pointing and letting down. Really simple drill. You can do it anywhere. You don't need a bow to practice it. Walk with me.